Chapter 6. Philosophy. The word philosophy means devotion to uncommon knowledge, or a man who likes to be wise. The ancient Greeks are famous for their advances in philosophy. Greek philosophers spent most of their lives pondering difficult questions. While many of their theories have been proven false over time, the fact that they were even asking these questions is important. It prompted the following generations to change the way they approach the unknown, to question common reason, and to ask why. Have you ever wondered why we are here, or where things come from, or what things are made up of? Ancient Greek philosophers moved beyond pure acceptance of the world around them and asked such questions. They used reason and observation to answer their questions, and their findings affected science, math, and geography. The question, what are things made of, was one that was pondered by many different philosophers. Each arrived at a different conclusion. Dirt and rocks are different from wood and water. They look different and feel different, but many philosophers felt that everything in the universe had to have a common base. Greek philosophers searched for common sense answers to questions. They developed logic and rules of argument that are still used in courts of law and debates today. They realized that for every view, there is often an opposing view. For instance, while rainy weather is good for the crops, it can also cause problems like leaky roofs or floodings. The philosopher Xenophanes. Think about the big questions. How would you answer them? If you discuss these questions with a friend, there's a good chance that he or she may have a different opinion. You'll notice that it's difficult to separate these philosophical questions from religion or science. Different religious beliefs affect a person's answer to all of these questions. So how can there be any one answer to these questions? Even in ancient Greece, the questions asked by philosophers were tied up with religious beliefs. Xenophanes, 560 to 478 BCE, was just one of many philosophers who doubted the stories told about the Greek gods and goddesses. The big philosophical questions. Though philosophy had its start in ancient Greece, even today people ponder some tough philosophical questions. There are ethical questions. What is right? What is wrong? How do you know and who decides? There are questions about the universe and its origins. How did the world come to be? Is there a system to the world? Did God create the world? How do you know? There are questions about our destiny. Can we tell the future? Are our lives planned out for us by fate, or do we choose our destiny? He questioned the belief that immortals looked just like human beings. He wrote, "The Ethiopians say that their gods are black. If horses could draw, they would draw their gods looking like horses." Some philosophers even began to question whether the gods existed at all, but ordinary people still believed in the gods, and philosophers' questions made them nervous. It seemed dangerous to doubt the gods. Future. Greek saying. Have you ever heard the saying, "You can't step into the same river twice"? Read this poem. "The river where you set your foot just now is gone. Those waters giving way to this, now this." Translated by Brooks Haxton in the New England Review, Winter 2001. This poem was written by Heraclitus, an early Greek philosopher who lived in the late 6th century BCE. He believed that all things are constantly in a state of flux or change. Years later, both Plato and Aristotle dismissed him as being illogical. A saying that we still use today has its roots in ancient Greece. Destiny. Socrates, 469 to 399 BCE. Socrates is one of the most famous ancient Greek philosophers, yet there is no record of his ever having written a word. Socrates didn't record what he discovered or how he made his discoveries. He felt that knowledge was a living thing. Everything that we know about Socrates comes from the writings of others. Socrates had an interesting idea about his own knowledge. While many ancient Greeks considered him to be a very smart man, he felt that there was so much to know that, in reality, he knew nothing. He thought it was his understanding that he didn't know everything that made him knowledgeable. Most Greek thinkers before Socrates had tried to answer the question, what is the world really like? But Socrates cared only about studying how one should live. That is, how a person should interact with his or her fellow human beings. Instead of questioning the universe and everything in it, like other philosophers did, he might ask questions like, what is courage? Or what is friendship? Socrates felt so strongly about his ideas that he even opposed the study of the natural world. He thought people would be better off if they searched for truth and learned how to deal honestly with one another. In his opinion, people should investigate which qualities or virtues lead one to live a good life, then define those virtues in such a way that others can follow the same path. Question: how might religion answer philosophical questions? This concentration on morality and the best way to live led Socrates to develop a unique style of reasoning. To this day, it is called the Socratic method, in his honor. To get at the heart of goodness, justice, and other virtues, Socrates asked questions of others, listened to their answers, and probed them for contradictions. If one answer proved false, Socrates would ask questions that led down a different path of reasoning in search of the true answer. Through this process of trial and error, Socrates and his listeners would eventually reach an answer that satisfied them all. Words to know. Philosophy, a quest for truth through logical reasoning, from the Greek word meaning lover of wisdom. Socratic method, a way of finding the truth through a series of questions. 800. All dates are BCE and approximate in many cases. Thales, 624 to 546 BCE, looked for causes within nature to explain nature. Archaic period. Xenophanes, 560 to 478 BCE, questioned the stories about the gods. Heraclitus, 540 to 480 BCE, believed fire was the essential material of the universe. Classical period. Socrates, 469 to 399 BCE, questioned how people should live and developed the Socratic method, a way of finding truth through asking questions. Plato, 429 to 347 BCE, was a student of Socrates who pondered what made people good or bad. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BCE, used philosophy and the Socratic method to study the natural world. Theophrastus, 370 to 285 BCE, was a student of Aristotle who studied the natural world and irrational beliefs. Hellenistic period. 31. The inquiring minds of Socrates eventually resulted in his death. His determination to question everything and everyone caused the leaders of ancient Greece to become angry. In his quest for knowledge, he was so bold as to question the existence of the gods, something that angered many Greeks and probably scared them a bit too. Socrates was accused of corrupting the youth of Athens. For this, he was sentenced to death. His friends wanted to help him escape from prison, but Socrates felt that it was important to comply with the law and die for his beliefs. Socrates, one of the greatest minds in ancient Greece, was forced to take his own life by drinking poison in the year 399 BCE at the age of 70. One of Socrates' students, Plato, continued his work. Plato, 429 to 347 BCE. Plato was born in Athens to a very wealthy family. When Plato was young, he listened to and learned from the Greek philosopher Socrates. Plato had great respect for Socrates and was very upset when he died. Plato wrote down some of the things he had heard Socrates speak about, which is how we know about Socrates today. Question: who did Plato believe should be running the government? Soon Plato began writing down some of his own ideas. He wrote about government, politics, and the natural world. In Plato's opinion, a few great people should make all of the decisions in government because he didn't think that most people were smart enough to make such decisions. It was likely that he thought of himself as one of the smart ones. As you might imagine, Plato's ideas about politics weren't readily accepted. Plato wondered about humans too. He thought that a soul was made of three parts: natural desire, will, and reason. Understanding our natural desires, having the ability to resist those natural desires, and knowing when to resist them was crucial to a balanced soul. Feeling thirsty is a natural desire, but if you are in the middle of giving a speech, your reason will tell you to wait until you have completed your presentation before getting a drink. Your will makes waiting possible. Plato felt that a person who was unable to control the urges of natural desire had an imbalanced soul, which could lead to that person being bad. Aristotle's four causes. The material cause. What is an item made out of? The efficient cause. What is the source of motion? The formal cause. What is the species, the kind, the type? The final cause. What is the full development of the individual? What is the intended function of an invention? Using this method, Aristotle might have followed this pattern of thought. A young will is made of tissue and organs, which is the material cause. The efficient cause is its parents who generated it. Its formal cause is its species, whale, and its final cause is to grow into an adult whale. Plato shared his ideas with students at a school he started in Athens called the Academy. During his time there, he continued to write about politics. He died at the age of 82. His students at the Academy are credited with writing down much of what they heard Plato speak of, so that we still have a record of his ideas today. Logic. Wondering exactly what logic looks like? Look at this problem. If y is greater than 12 and 12 is greater than 2, then y is greater than 2. Make sense? Here's another. If London is in England, then London is not in China. We know that London is in England, therefore London is not in China. But what about this one? Jenny likes ice cream and Jenny likes broccoli, therefore Jenny will certainly like ice cream topped with broccoli. Following this pattern of logic or reasoning can also lead to a conclusion that seems true, but is not. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BCE. Aristotle, another famous philosopher, was a student of Plato's. He combined philosophy and science by applying the Socratic method to the study of natural events. He questioned the causes of natural events, for example, the changes in weather and the motion of the tides. As he worked out his questions and answers, Aristotle developed the four causes. He made great progress in the fields of biology, zoology, astronomy, physics, mechanics, and many more. Words to know. Biology, the science of life. Zoology, the science of animals, a branch of biology. Astronomy, the science of the celestial bodies like the planets and stars. Physics, the science of matter and energy and their interactions. Mechanics, a branch of physical science that studies energy and forces in relation to solids, liquids, and gases. Premise, a condition stated at the beginning, something assumed. Inductive reasoning, the truth of the premises lends support to the conclusion but does not guarantee it. Deductive reasoning, the truth of the premises guarantees the truth of the conclusion. Logic, the science of formal, correct reasoning. Sometimes he supported his arguments with research, but in other cases his data was simply the current opinion about what was correct or information based on what other people had previously written on a subject. Though his conclusions weren't always right, the method he developed, called inductive reasoning, is the foundation of the Western scientific method. Because of Aristotle's contributions to science, he is still considered by many to be the most important thinker of the entire Greek era, if not of all time. One of Aristotle's greatest achievements was creating the field of logic, which is the study of correct reasoning. Before Aristotle, no one had bothered to determine which arguments lead to true conclusions and which ones lead to conclusions that only seem true. Know your ancient Greeks. Theophrastus, circa 370 to 285 BCE. Theophrastus was born about 15 years after Aristotle, but when he enrolled as a student in Plato's academy, the two of them quickly became good friends. They traveled around Greece and Asia Minor together, and when Aristotle died in 322 BCE, he gave Theophrastus his garden, library, and writings. At this time, Theophrastus also became director of the Lyceum, a school in Athens started by Aristotle. Theophrastus ran the Lyceum for 35 years, doing research in all areas of botany, but also writing about superstitions, that is, irrational beliefs like black cats causing bad luck. His work, Characters, contains 30 humorous essays about different types of people, and it was so influential that European humor writers in the 17th century were still using it as an example of how to write. His other writings includes descriptions of minerals, gems, and rocks, and the experiments that Theophrastus and his students performed on them. When Theophrastus died at age 85, he is believed to have said, "We die just when we are beginning to live. There is always more to research and discover," he thought, "so we should never sit idle." In his words, nothing costs us so dear as the waste of time.